Welcome to Capitalize Your Finances, the podcast that's your ultimate guide to mastering personal finances and unlocking the secrets of entrepreneurship. Each week, we dive into the world of personal finance and business development and have fascinating conversations with industry experts, seasoned entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories to help you get ahead in life. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur looking to scale your business or someone just starting out on your financial path, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable insights.
Welcome back to Capitalize Your Finances. As always, I'm your host, Christopher A. Paniotu, certified financial planner professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And today we have a very special episode. It's very nuanced. We're going to go over the top 10 common 401k questions that you all have for me. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode in the fact that I have not seen these questions yet, so I will be answering them in real time for better or worse. Now, before we get to the questions, just a couple things I want to run by you. I know that you all that have tuned in before, welcome back to the show. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you have any questions about today's episode, if you have questions about your 401k plan, if you're interested in our books, our masterclass online, you're going to want to head on over to capitalizepodcast.com. That is our hub where you can get all of that information. And before we get into the 401k episode, if you work for a nonprofit or if you work for a governmental agency, a 403B and a 457B, for the purpose of this episode, technically they're the same. There are some nuanced differences in between the three of them, but that's going to be beyond the scope of today's episode. And if you have questions, you can shoot us an email at capitalizepodcast.com and I'll answer for you. So with that, we're going to get into the questions that I have yet to see, and we are going to see how this goes. And I know my compliance people are shaking in their boots because they never know what I'm going to say. So the first question: how does a traditional 401k differ from a Roth 401k? So I'm going to read that one more time. How does a traditional 401k differ from a Roth 401k? Now, there's a couple things. Back in the day, the only way that you could contribute to a retirement plan is before you pay tax. So how it works is if here's the tax system, here's your paycheck, it jumps over the tax system, it grows tax deferred, and then eventually when you retire, that's when you pull that money out and you pay the tax at that time. Now, up until, let me take that back. In the early 2000s, the Roth 401k and Roth IRA came into play. And basically what that means is, here's the tax system, you take your contributions, you pay the tax today, and then that money grows tax-free. So when you get to retirement, the beauty is you are not paying tax on those dollars and those gains. So that's the major difference between a traditional 401k and a Roth 401k. Now, most companies offer both, so you don't have to pick one or the other. You could actually do a blend of the two. And there's going to be some tax strategy that is involved with that, which is pretty cool. But I'm not going to get too far into the weeds because I don't know if we're going to get that question answered later on in the episode. So the second question: what are the key benefits of contributing to a 401k? All right, so we can get a couple of these answered. So right off the bat, if you are trying to retire, you're going to have to save for retirement. And what better way to do so than through your company's retirement plan, in this case, 401k. Now, number one, if you are working for an employer that has a retirement plan, more likely than not, they have some type of matching benefit, which is a fancy way of saying free money. So as an example, if you have, let's say, a retirement plan that matches 50 cents on the dollar up to 5% or dollar for dollar up to 4%, you're going to want to make sure you put in at least whatever that number is, because that is free money that if you don't do it, you're leaving free money on the table. And I'd like to think I've been a pretty good investor over my years, but I can't guarantee you a 50% return or 100% return, nor can anyone, mind you. And that's where the retirement plan comes into play. So the first one is you're basically getting free money in the match. Number two is going to be the fees. So generally speaking, if you have a 401k plan or an individual retirement plan or an IRA, think of your 401k as buying in bulk. So a lot of these retirement plans, there aren't any front-end loads or back-end loads, which are basically layers of fees that you're going to have to pay. Another way of thinking about it is if you're going to go buy in bulk, you're going to want to shop at a Costco because your dollars are going to be stretched further. Now, the con with that is your order might not be as custom, but if you're trying to save for retirement, you want to keep things as simple as possible and straightforward as possible and just get that ball rolling, which actually brings me to the last part of the major benefit of the 401k side. So we went over the match, we went over the fees, and then the last part is the simplicity. So the maximum that you can put into a retirement plan in the year of 2024 is $23,000 in if you're under 50, and then if you're over 50, it's going to be 30 grand. Now, the reason I bring that up is that is a lot of money. However, if you don't get to that maximum and you're just not able to get the maximum contribution into your retirement plan every year, that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. In fact, it's far from it. I've had a ton of clients that I work with personally that come into our office that when they retire, they have maybe $2 million in their retirement plans, and they never got close to hitting that maximum dollar contribution. But I tell you that because the most successful clients I have that are in the tens, 20, $30 million net worth range, the one piece of advice they've always given me, and which I'm going to give you, is the longer you can keep things simple, the better. Because with more money comes a tremendous amount of complexity. So I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but it all ties into the benefits of a 401k plan. And again, 403b and 457 if you work for a nonprofit or a governmental agency. Now, the third common 401k question that you all have put in is, what investment options are typically available within a 401k? So here is the honest to God truth about retirement plans. Because again, 20% of my business is actually constructing retirement plans and managing them for companies. I wish I could provide every single investment strategy under the sun, but there is no freaking way that I would be able to do that. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, if you had something like real estate or private equity or private credit, some of these highly sophisticated strategies, and in some cases, illiquid strategies, good luck, because a lot of people, they simply aren't going to be able to stomach the risk, the volatility, the illiquidity. And there is not a single retirement plan advisor out there that is willing to put his or her licenses on the line to make life a living hell for everyone involved. So let's start with what's not going to be in the majority of them. So real estate, private equity, lending, you really don't see a ton of the annuities out there. You don't see preferred stock. Basically, anything that is not a traditional investment. So what that leaves is money market accounts, bond investments, and stock investments. And generally, they are in the flavor of either mutual funds or index funds. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other because that is far from the truth. But what's kind of cool about the simplicity with the retirement plan, again, think about what I mentioned earlier, is if you know that is all you have at your fingertips, if you've read the book, if you've gone back and taken our course, you now know exactly where you need to go. And again, simplicity is the key to success. So those are the options that are typically available within your 401k. I would say the only exception to that, if you are a business owner and you're the only employee, or if it's you and a couple partners that are running the business. Well, if that's the case, you can get more creative with some of those more the more sophisticated strategies. But if you're working for a company where you're offering it to all of your employees, or if you are an employee that has a 401k at a big company like a Microsoft or Google or whatever, there's no way you're going to get uber creative with those investments. And that's okay. Now, the fourth question that is on all of your minds regarding your 401k plans: how often should I review and adjust my 401k investment portfolio? This is a great question. And I'm going to give you an answer that you're going to hate. It depends. So on average, you're going to want to reanalyze it at least annually. Now, I answered it depends because there truly is some variability to that statement. I'll explain it. Let's say that you're allocated for a long-term time horizon and there's a downturn. There's an economic downturn. Chances are the 401k companies out there aren't going to be trading investments that do X for other companies or investments that do X. They want to keep things stagnant. And the reason for that is, well, there's a number of reasons. Number one, when things are absolutely chaotic, you don't want to make any crazy moves. Now, I know that is super contradictory to what Wall Street and the mainstream media portrays to you when it comes to investing in planning. But if you know how you need to plan, when times are really bad, that should actually be the most peace and calm that you should feel. I would say it's when times are just smoking, rocking and rolling. You are on cloud nine. Your portfolio is on cloud nine. That's when I would be I'd be super critical on reanalyzing things, because it may make sense to take some gains off of the top of your portfolio. Now, whether or not there are other options out there, that's a whole nother story, because again, you're going off of your retirement plan options at your company. Or if you manage your own 401k, if you're a business owner, you'd have to talk to your respective advisor or financial planner for that. But all things being equal, if I had to give a simple answer, you want to check it at least annually, but it is a variable. There's a huge variance in that answer. Now, the fifth common 401k question: what happens to my 401k if I change jobs or leave my current employer? You die. No, I'm totally kidding. So when you leave your employer or you change jobs, there's a couple things you can do with your retirement plan. First off, I want to mention, once you leave, your dollars still stay invested the way that they are. Now, there are a couple exceptions to that. I know for some pretty big companies out there, if there's less than, let's say it's $1,000 in a retirement plan, they will either notify you and say, hey, you've got to basically roll this into an individual retirement account, or they might just send you the money and cash it out. That last one is pretty rare. But most of the time, if you don't touch your money stays in that retirement plan and it stays invested. Now, as far as what you can do with that money, there are some options. You can either obviously keep it where it's at. If you have a retirement plan, a 401k at your current company, you can roll that previous 401k into the 401k at your new employer. Also, fun little side note, if you go from a 401k to a 403b, or a 403b to a 457b, or a 457b to a 401k, you can roll them into each other. And if you don't have a retirement plan at your current employer, you could take your retirement plan at your previous company and you could roll it into an individual retirement account. This also goes for a Roth 401k. So if you have a Roth 401k at a previous company and your new company offers a Roth 401k, 403b, or 457b, you could take that, roll it into there. If that's not an option, you could take that money and roll it into a Roth IRA. The only thing that you can't do, because as far as rolling, it's actually pretty straightforward. So you could take 401k money, roll it into an IRA, then you get a new job that has a 401k, you could roll that IRA into the new company 401k. The only thing you cannot do is if you have a Roth 401k or 403b or 457b, and you roll it into a Roth IRA, if you have a company, like your new employer, that has a Roth option, you cannot roll that money into the Roth 401k. You can't go from Roth IRA to Roth 401k. Why? I don't write the rules. That is beyond my pay grade. But those are the options that you have if you have a 401k at a previous job. If you want to get a new job or just know what to do with it, that's what you know. Now, before we continue on in this episode, we're going to take a little break. My marketing team is going to roll the clip for today's sponsor of the episode. I'm going to take a sip of my drink, and then we'll get right back to it.
Capitalizers, this episode is sponsored by the best-selling book, Capitalize Your Finances, the how-to framework that takes you from compoundingly clueless to monetarily magnificent. Regardless of where you're at in your financial life, whether you're just beginning to express interest and commitment to your personal finances, at the pinnacle of your career, winding down into retirement, or thinking about your legacy for future generations, this book walks you through every step of the way so you can succeed on your terms and with your own values and passions guiding you. After reading this book, you will officially have Christopher A. Panayotou, the Cap in Capitalize, in your back pocket, guiding you in detail through every step of the way so that you can take charge of your finances, not the other way around. Head on over to Amazon.com today and start capitalizing your finances to the fullest with this incredible book, Capitalize Your Finances, the how-to financial framework that takes you from compoundingly clueless to monetarily magnificent. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome back from the break. You were missed dearly. Now let's get back into the top 10 common 401k questions that you all are dying to have me answer. And again, reminding you, I have not seen any of these. I've been freestyling the entire time. Number 6, can I contribute to both a 401k and an individual retirement account, or an IRA for short? The answer is yes, and this is a great question. And I'm going to try not to go too deep into the rabbit hole with this one, but it is a very valuable question that needs to be answered. Short answer is yes, you can contribute to both of them. However, what I would tell someone is all things being equal, and this kind of goes back to one of the answers that I mentioned earlier. If you have an option between a 401k and an individual retirement account, where do you go with that? I tell people until you've maxed out your 401k or 403b or 457b, do not even think about contributing to your individual retirement account. And like I said earlier, matching, simplicity, fees, not in any particular order. Now, if you are able to max out your 401k, you can totally contribute to an individual retirement account. Now, there's a couple caveats to that. So I tell this to people all the time. The greatest investment that you can guarantee, other than in yourself, is not actually an investment. It's the taxes you avoid. And so for your IRA, assuming you have a retirement plan, if you are contributing to this 401k and you're able to max out your 401k, chances are, if you're in that situation, you probably make too much money to contribute to an individual retirement account, an IRA, and get a tax deduction for it. So a common trick that is utilized a ton. I utilize this all the time. In fact, I did this a couple weeks ago for my wife and I. You max out your 401k, and then what you would do is you would take whatever the contribution is for an IRA, which this year is $7,000 if you're under 50, and you basically write the check to an IRA, and then the next day you convert that money to a Roth IRA. We call it a backdoor Roth IRA. Now, I don't know how long that's going to be a thing because I know in Congress they're trying to take that away. They've been trying to take it away for years, but it seems like it's getting closer to being not a thing. But the reason why I bring that up is if you're going to put money into an individual retirement account and you're not getting a deduction for it, you might as well pay the tax today and have that money grow tax-free. Now, in theory, if you are maxing out your 401k and your tax bracket is basically, next to nothing, you could put money into an individual retirement account, also get a deduction, but you wouldn't want to do that anyway because why would you want to get a deduction on hardly any tax? Like you want to legally avoid as much tax as humanly possible. And again, I know we went on a little tangent there, but can I contribute to both 401k and individual retirement account? Yes. Yes, you can. But it just comes down to why, and I already answered that. So number 7, what happens to my 401k if my employer goes out of business? It's a great question. First off, I hope no one has to deal with that. But if you are in that unique circumstance, here's something that's interesting about a 401k or 403b or 457b. A retirement plan, a qualified retirement plan, it is a separate entity from the business and from you. You see, in the eyes of the government, we're all different entities. So I am a person. That's one type of entity. I run Capitalize Your Finances LLC. That is a type of entity. And then Capitalize Your Finances 401k is a separate entity. So God forbid if I'm no longer here and Capitalize Your Finances just went out of business, that 401k is still standing on its own. So the reason why I bring that up is even if your company went out of business, your retirement plan, it's still going to be intact. Now, for how long, that's obviously to be determined because there are fees that are associated with a 401k. I mean, they're not free. And so generally speaking, what happens is as that time gets closer for payments to come due, you as an employee are going to be notified by whoever holds the money. And it'll basically be something like, hey, your company's out of business. Well, no, duh, because that means you're out of a job. And you need to roll your retirement plan to either a new company 401k or an individual retirement account, or you could cash it out with tax penalties. But you generally get a heads up for that. But we have a couple clients that in the past worked for companies that went out of business, and that 401k lasted, I believe it was like 2 years until they actually had to roll that money out. So it can be a little while. I will say this, if that does happen, you're going to want to roll your money into either your new company's 401k or an IRA if your new company doesn't have an option like that as soon as possible, because frankly, you're just saving a gargantuan headache, okay? Now, number 8, can I convert my traditional 401k into a Roth 401k? The answer is yes. You can do a backdoor Roth 401k conversion. And it's no different than a backdoor Roth IRA conversion. Now, what's a little bit more unique about the 401k side of things is if you're contributing the maximum every single year, that's like we call it a mega backdoor Roth 401k because it's massive, right? It's almost it's over 3 times the contribution into an individual retirement account. So that's a pretty quick one. Short answer is yes. Now, number 9, coming down to the end of the wire. How does my 401k impact my overall retirement savings strategy? I'm going to read that again. That's a good question. How does my 401k impact my overall retirement savings strategy? So we answered that earlier a couple times in the fact that your 401k is really the engine to you saving for retirement. And I can tell you, some of the most successful clients, I mentioned this earlier, they've come into the office and their portfolio looks like this. They got a home, just as an example, or a condo. They got their checking account. They've got a savings account. They may have a little portfolio, like a non-retirement investment account. And then they've got their retirement plan. And it's generally, hundreds of thousands, in some cases, a couple $1 million, because they've been doing it for so long. And as far as your 401k saving strategy, and I won't go too much more on this, until you hit that max, don't think about going anywhere else. Just make it simple and straightforward. Now, one thing I am going to add is, let's say that you listening in are married and you go, hey, we both have company retirement plans. How do we coordinate these accordingly? Well, the first thing is, all things being equal, because I know nothing about your debt or any of that, let's assume debt's gone and you just have enough free cash flow. You want to each put in at least up to the match of your companies. So if one of you has 50 cents on the dollar up to 5%, another has dollar for dollar up to 4%, you're going to want to make sure you get up to those matches. Now, after that, the question becomes, who do you max out first? And that's going to come down to the fee side of things. Now, if you want to know the exact place to figure that out, you could call both of your company's retirement plans and like where the money's held and get a fee breakdown for that. You could look on the adoption agreement or the summary plan description, which are legal documents. They're actually pretty easy to read. However, if you don't want to do all that, or that sounds just super overwhelming, kind of as a ballpark, the larger the company and the larger the retirement plan as far as total dollars, the more your money will be stretched. So for example, I'm just going to pick my brother and I and say, let's say that I work for Capitalize Your Finances. Instead of my brother running his business, he works for Google. Google's a little bit larger than Capitalize Your Finances. And so it's going to be a pretty safe bet to say that his dollars would go a whole heck of a lot farther than my dollars. So if that was the case in that scenario, because obviously my brother and I wouldn't be married, he would want to max out his retirement plan until I increased my contribution by a penny. And again, that's the way for you to really squeeze the blood out of the turnip and try to juice up your not only retirement returns, but your fee returns in the costs that you're not having to pay. And then the last question, man, we ripped through this episode. How do changes in employment status affect my 401k? So pretty cut and dry. If you're working somewhere and you are eligible for the retirement plan, which, generally speaking, you're either eligible immediately, eligible after 6 months, or eligible after a year. Once you're eligible, and you can start contributing as soon as that next paycheck. If you're not working at that company, you can't contribute. And like I said earlier, you can keep that money at the retirement plan, but you can't add to it, which makes perfect sense because with a retirement plan, you have to track where that money is coming from the payroll. Well, if you don't have any payroll, there's no way to do it. So that is the final question of the top 10 common 401k questions that you all have for me. I ended with a little tongue twister. So now that you've listened to that, you should be well on your way to tackling your 401k and retirement with confidence. And again, 403B and 457 for those of you that do not have a 401k. So as always, thank you so much for listening into today's episode. I hope you find this valuable. I know I did. And I know you all that not only tuned in, but emailed in through capitalizepodcast.com with these questions. I know you're going to have the answers. So you're welcome for that. If you are listening in and you said, hey, I've seen some amazing guests that you've had on the show, I would like to be a guest on Capitalize Podcast, Capitalize Your Finances podcast. Head on over to capitalizepodcast.com, shoot my team and I an inquiry, and we'll get back to you if you are fortunate enough within 48 hours. As always, thank you for joining me today. If you have questions about today's episode or any personal finance questions, please reach out to me at Cap and Capitalize on Instagram, Chris at capitalizeyourfinances.com, or via our website, capitalizepodcast.com. If you want more Capitalize Your Finances content, head on over to capitalizepodcast.com and check out our blog, free resources, book, and online course. As always, I'm your host, Christopher A. Paniotu, Certified Financial Planning Professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And until next time, keep capitalizing.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstance. These materials are provided for general information and educational purposes based upon publicly available information from sources believed to be reliable. We cannot assure the accuracy or completeness of these materials. The information in these materials may change at any time and without notice. Distributions of principal from a Roth 401k are tax-free. However, any earnings will be taxed at ordinary income rates, and a 10% penalty tax will apply if withdrawn prior to age 59.5 or within 5 years of the date the Roth 401k was established, whichever is longer. Your investment options are limited with a Roth 401k to those offered by the plan administrator. Charges and fees may be incurred. 401k plan information used is obtained from sources believed to be reliable as of the current date, but no representation is made as to its accuracy and completeness. Benefits may be subject to change at your employer's, the governing pensions, or benefit organization's discretion. Traditional IRA account owners have considerations to make before performing a Roth IRA conversion. These primarily include income tax consequences on the converted amount in the year of conversion, withdrawal limitations from a Roth IRA, and income limitations for future contributions to a Roth IRA. In addition, if you're required to take a required minimum distribution in the year you convert, you must do so before converting to a Roth IRA. IRA withdrawals will be taxed at ordinary income rates. Withdrawals prior to age 59.5 may also be subject to a 10% penalty tax. Roth IRA distributions of principal from a Roth IRA are tax-free. However, any earnings will be taxed at ordinary income rates, and a 10% penalty tax will apply if withdrawn prior to age 59.5 or within 5 years of the date the Roth IRA was established, whichever is longer. Annuities are long-term investment products designed for retirement purposes. Guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuer, subject to their terms and conditions. Money market mutual funds, though traditionally lacking federal insurance and not without risk, are highly regulated under federal law. Before investing, carefully consider a mutual fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. To obtain a prospectus or summary prospectus, which contains this and other information, call your financial advisor. Read the prospectus carefully before investing. LPL Financial Insurance License Number 0518721. LPLIA Insurance License Number 0B91442. Christopher A. Paniotu is a registered representative with and securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.